Yeah.
Can someone be born a narcissist, or is this something that, I mean, you talked a little bit about it with the personality disorder, but their environment sort of creates them into this character, so to speak?
I think in psychology, it's the nature nurture debate, and it's gone
Mhm.
on for decades now. Are you born this way? Are you entrained into this? And even that can become a political conversation. So left leaning people would say it's trauma. Right leaning people would say you're born this way.
Mhm.
However, we now live in the age of epigenetics, so we know full well that in no instance is it purely one or the other. In the age,
Mm.
if you unless you reject epigenetics and its claims, which is your environmental pressures are causing genes that otherwise would be dormant to start expressing themselves. So I had some genetic material that would lead me to psychopathy. Had I been raised in a lovely, sweet, and quiet home, we would never have seen it. However, I was raised in a brutal environment with a drunk for a father, and my mother's physically abusive, and I have to join a gang by I'm 12 or I'm going to get stabbed to death. Guess what? That latent genetic material this is a really geneticists be pulling their hair out right now because I'm coloring with crayons. But something like this, something like this is happening. Um, it's nobody can really say. All I know that would be useful for you and useful to the viewers is from the research I've seen up until now, psychopathy seems to have a more genetic component than
Mm.
narcissism. As the technology develops, which because it's still fairly new, we'll know more in the next 50 years or so.
Right. So it is a possibility that people become narcissists as a defense mechanism.
I mean, the thing is with narcissism, the reason why I and others would push back on the genetic element is there are specific substructures to the personality that really require that you learn that after you're born.
Mm.
It has all of the hallmarks of a learned response. You need an audience. You need to learn that love is adulation. Like to a narcissist, genuine, vulnerable adult love is not only meaningless, it's somewhat horrifying. It's
Mm.
like, I love you because you're a person. I'm not a person. Ugh, I don't want your love. I want you to worship me or
Right.
fear me, but I am above you. I'm always above you. If you come at me like this, ugh, I'm going to be disgusted. I'm going to be offended, and I'm going to hurt you for that. You need punishing because you broke the system. That's learned. That
Mm.
has to be learned. I don't think there's anything in genetics that would cause a person to be born like that. With psychopathy, if you said there's less empathy, this person's sadistic, they're more prone to aggression, they have lower impulse control. Yes, and we could selectively breed animals for that. It's been done. They've done it with
Mm.
foxes in Russia, so we know that that's possible. The narcissism thing, I really doubt it.
So interesting. So narcissists are rigid in their point of views for the most part. Is it possible to get them to change their mind ever?
I don't know. If you give me 20 of them, 5 years, a Guantanamo Bay style prison camp, and you waive their human rights, and I have an unending amount of psychedelic drugs to pump into them, maybe.
Mm.
I don't, I mean, all I can say is like normal dialogue, which is what talk therapy is. Talk therapy is wonderful, but
Mm.
and can work very well, but it requires two consenting adults with the same objective to be
Yeah.
open and vulnerable, and that's not going to happen with a narcissist or somebody with NPD. So I don't know how to do it because their whole personality structure is rooted in a stubborn, rigid denial of reality. Like the core of their being is no.
Right.
Keep reality out. So you come along and you say, "Hey, have you thought maybe you could be less of a dick all the time?" And their first response is just, "No,
Right.
I'm perfect. You have the problem." And if you
Right.
say all of your family and friends think the same way, it's a really simple answer. They go, "Well, I'm perfect. So therefore, all of my family and friends are engaged in a conspiracy against me."
Right.
And anybody who's been with a narcissist will recognize the tone and the style I've adopted for that. It feels the same.
Yeah. So I think a big question for people that deal with narcissists is how can they change? How can I get them to change? Will they ever change? And, they hang on to this hope. that something will change. And I think that becomes almost the worst part of it. I've experienced it in relationships. I've experienced it with my own one of my parents, which to me is almost worse because there's this feeling that my problem is that I constantly forgive and I constantly think, oh well, this can't be how this is going to turn out. She will eventually turn around and be nice or love me or whatever it is that you hope for. And I think, I've watched some of your stuff and we'll get to that actually in a little bit because I want to talk about parental narcissism or whatever. But I think that in a lot of it, people stay because they hope that something's going to change.
Yes. So to answer the first question,
Mhm.
if they have narcissistic traits, they can have an intervention, there can be feedback, and they can change.
Mm.
If you're looking at narcissistic personality disorder, the best thing you could do for yourself is to give up hope, to cry, to grieve, to despair, deal with that, go to therapy. Don't expect them to go to therapy because there's no them there. If it's narcissistic personality disorder, the authentic human being locked itself away in a protective shell many years ago before they ever knew your name.
Yeah.
And chose is the wrong word, but they had to do that, or they felt they had to do that in order to survive. It's over. They're gone. Um, many victims of narcissistic abuse can end up entrained into codependency through this hope betrayal cycle. And what they're hoping for is to see the good split. So because the person is split and there's this wonderful, charming, fawning, seductive, kind side to them that wants to please you, that's what we hope for. And we hope the bad version of them never returns.
Mhm.
And so we, sorry to say to the people who have been in these relationships, we start to go mad with them
Mm.
because they're split. So we relate to them in a split way. We start splitting them and we start recording the good and the bad memories, I claim, separately. So we develop a kind of dissociative response to the trauma, which is why we forgive, because you're not associating to all the bad things they did. You associate to the good things the good side of them pretends to do, and you leave the bad stuff in another place, which means that the therapeutic hill to climb is quite long and quite steep in truth.
Something you mentioned was that, they have this charm to them. I personally know part of my bad picker is that I tend to pick people that are that have these narcissistic traits. Those people also tend to be very successful or be very charming or outgoing or have some sort of A-type personality. And to me, I find that attractive, but I keep picking people that also have that trait. What is it about um, us that picks these people, or what is it about these people that they're so charming and so alluring to other people? Because you would think just, in one, it would be obvious that people would want to stay away from somebody with those traits.
Um, it isn't obvious to me that people would want to stay away from people with those traits. I think that's something that we were all raised to think. But if you challenge it, it isn't true. Don't you love the bad guy in some movies? Isn't he kind of cooler than and funnier and more interesting? Like the good guy's just good. Duh.
Mhm.
I'm just good. Oh, good for you, Boy Scout. Why is the Joker killing people? Why is he called Hans Gruber, Alan Rickman in the Bruce Willis movie Die Hard?
Die
That's a
Hard.
fun, that's a charming, evil. I wanna have dinner with him. I want to sit next to the Boy Scout. What am I going to learn? No. It's I think we have to be forgiving of ourselves and be like, well, what's here? So yes, confidence is sexy, and there's a gender split here. So for women who are very sexually provocative, who are in the histrionic spectrum of the cluster B, who are going to use sex and use sexual attractiveness, I can't sit here and go, oh, I have no idea why I would find that attractive. Like, of course. Of course. So there's a thing that I have to say to men, which is like, okay, recognize this in yourself. There are archetypes, there are stories. Think of the story of Salome in the Bible, and the the archetype of the Jezebel, or whatever. They have this in every culture. To women, I would say, let's have some just honest debate. Isn't it hot? The bad guy's hot, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Genetically, what are you looking for? You want strong DNA, you want decisiveness, you want confidence, you want some meek, like flat. Oh, I'm a good guy. Oh, it's great for you. What are we looking for? What are we looking for? And then how do we get some of what we're looking for and understand our own genetic drives? Because not everything that we're genetically adapted to is good. That's the nature fallacy. Just because your genes are saying, hey, get with this really hot, sexually provocative girl, or this really hot, psychopathic, cold, indifferent, but strong man, means you should do it. We don't follow every genetic drive, but is there good there? What are you going for? And to try and pass that, and then you called it a picker, reprogram for that and go, no, I want that. That's hot. Because if I want to stay with somebody for decades, I'm planning on having sex, so I would like sexual attraction to be there. These are the things I need. I think we can find a common ground. We don't want to engage in splitting. A lot of the victims of narcissistic abuse engage in splitting. You're either going to be with a hot, evil man or a not hot but good man. And that's splitting. That's not what the world. That's not your only two options.
Right, right.